Hey, what's up? So, the season 2, year 7, or the year 7 season 2 reveal just got announced, and by just I mean yesterday. Um, and I thought I would go over the suggestions that I made back in April. So, obviously, this was before the reveal of Vector Clear, so there you go. Just keep that in mind. These are all of my suggestions. I still think most of these are applicable. Some of these make less sense, as we will see, but most of these are still very applicable. Let's go right through it. So we have a randomized customization option. I've talked about this so many times. I don't need to beat the dead horse. I get a yawn. I always have a yawn. Whenever I'm recording, I have no idea. I have no idea why. But yeah, I've talked about this a lot. Basically, just add the same thing that you have in Fortnite and Apex Legends, where every round that I go into, I get a random weapon skin. It should not be that difficult to implement. I am so upset that they haven't yet, but whatever. Alright, so this one's going to be significant, especially with the reputation system, where you're going to be team killing a lot. Um, a keep in game option. So basically, a lot of the reason that people team kill in Siege is to keep their friend in. So say you're playing with a friend who's going to be AFK, they don't want their friend to be kicked for an activity. If you team kill them, they no longer get kicked for an activity. Why not just give us a option that where if you team kill, um, if you select keep in game, then the person just straight up doesn't get kicked for an activity. Because the point of getting kicked for an activity is to replace you so that new players can join in and replace you, right? So it's like, okay, if you're not going to play, then we'll kick you out and let somebody else who can play come back in. Or at least that's one of the points. There's obviously the other side effect of when everyone else is dead and you're waiting for this person to you're waiting for this AFK person to come back so that the round can actually progress. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. What? Man, the yawns are crazy. All right, forfeit round option. So, this is going to be exactly that. I said we were going to talk about it in a minute. We're talking about it right here. Boom. A forfeit option. At any point in the round, the team can vote to forfeit the round. If all players -1 votes for this option, it passes. So what that means by all players -1 is that it means that if there are 5 players in the team total, then if 4 players vote for it, then you forfeit the round. Or if there are 4 players in the round, then if 3 people, blah 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 blah. This should make sense, right? This could be for a wide variety of reasons, but the most common would likely be you don't have to wait for an AFK player to return. So, for example, if you have an AFK player and you're waiting, they're just like say you're on attack, you have an AFK player. Instead of waiting for them to come back or wait like 3.5 minutes, whatever, you can just say, okay, we're gonna forfeit this round, and that way we don't have to wait. We can just say, okay, we lose, moving on to the next round. Um, no more getting kicked for inactivity in ranked and unranked. The whole point of getting kicked for inactivity is to allow new players to join in mid-game and replace the AFK players with new players. You can't join mid-match in these particular playlists, so what's the point of being restrictive about it? There is no point. So as long as you have the forfeit thing, like all of these need to be implemented at the same time. If you do just one, then that could be awkward. Did my thing crash? Hello? No, we're good now. Weird. Just wouldn't let me select anything. Okay. Yeah, so all of these, they need to be implemented at the same time. Uh, I gotta keep yawning, man. I swear I'm not tired. I just yawn whenever I record. Anyways, forgive any time. This one should have been implemented a long time ago. I'm still kind of annoyed it's not been. But anyways, forgive any time. Instead of having to wait to claim if a team kill was an intentional one or not, in the 10-second window, you can select the person's username or ID and choose to forgive them at any point in the game. It's rather than having to do it right then and there. Say you're AFK, you get team killed. Whenever you come back, you can forgive the person. Or if you just choose to forgive the person a couple rounds later. Uh, A new training grounds option, easy. This one is just for fun. I don't really care if it gets implemented, but it would be great if it did. It's just normal, except all operators, regardless of their ability, will be able to refill their primary gadget. So obviously, with the current system, only Castle and Buck can refill their primary gadget. Just have an easy difficulty one where all operators can refill their primary gadget. So that includes Lion, that includes Ying, that includes Finka. It's obviously going to be pretty easy, but still, I think it would be fun. Sort owned cosmetics by category. This will allow users to sort their list of charms, weapon skins, and other customization options that they own by rarity, release, or name. I myself am a person who has a lot of charms. And the only reason I don't actually put on charms is because it takes forever to find the specific charms I'm looking for. Because there's absolutely no sorting option. I don't even know what it goes by. It doesn't go by when I got it. It doesn't go by release. It doesn't go by rarity. It doesn't go by name. It just seems completely random the order that the charms are in. So give us the ability to filter them or categorize them in some fashion. I don't know. I feel like that would be a good thing. This one would be a really good change right here. Friendly fire is completely disabled during the preparation phase and the first 30 seconds of the round. Accidents happen. Let's reduce frustration. So as you know, sometimes you have people who are in the preparation phase and they accidentally shoot their teammates. Say they're shooting a drone, or they are trying to make a rotation in a wall, and they shoot their teammate. Obviously, that shouldn't that's going to cause a lot of frustration, and it's for no reason. So, get rid of that frustration. Get rid of friendly fire. It is not needed in the preparation phase. Um, and get rid of it in the first 30 seconds of the round. So that way, for the attackers, for example, if you're shooting at a drone, or not a drone, if you're shooting at a CCTV camera, then and you shoot your teammate, not a big deal, because that's happened sometimes where you're trying to shoot a camera and shoot your teammate, or you're trying to deal with a spawn peeker and you shoot your teammate. So first 30 seconds of the round, no friendly fire. Um, Reverse friendly fire is enabled by default in casual and quick match for the first round that any players play. So say for example you're going into a game. Sorry, I keep yelling. I can't help it, man. I can't. Say you're going into a game of casual, um, for the very first round that you join in. It could be mid game or it could be the first round of the game, regardless. For that first round that you're in the game, you have reverse friendly fire by default. That way, people who join in can't immediately just friendly fire the first person they see, and then leave. They would at least need to play a couple of rounds. I think that would be good. I don't see really a reason why not, right? Uh, so, yeah, I don't know. That one is a little controversial, but let me know what you guys think of that one. All right, this one is. I'm not too sure about if they should implement this for a couple of reasons. I'll explain why. But request to play an operator. So when you're in the selection phase, when you're trying to choose which operator you want, when choosing which operator to play, you can select an already selected operator, and that will let the team know that you wish to play that operator. So obviously, if you're playing on console, for example, there is absolutely zero way of communicating to your team that you want to play a specific operator. So there's the real possibility that you want to play IQ, but somebody chose IQ. And there's absolutely no way that you can tell that IQ, hey, I want to play IQ. So in this way, you get to tell that teammate, hey, I want to play IQ. I think it's a good change, but there is a level of potential extra toxicity if a person willingly chooses not to change. So, for example, if you are a player that always plays Gridlock, right? I know somebody who always plays Gridlock, and you just want to play Gridlock, but you have somebody that's choosing Gridlock. Um, Currently, there's not really anything you can do about it. So, if the person also really wants to play Gridlock, then it's not going to really be as frustrating to you because you know that the other person doesn't mean to steal that from you. Whereas if you um, tell them, hey, I want to play Gridlock, and they choose to not give you Gridlock, that might give you frustration. Where before that frustration wasn't possible, because it's like there's no way he could know. Now, if the person doesn't give you Gridlock, then you're going to feel like, oh, this person is, you know, betraying me, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think it's a good change, but there is the possibility that it will cause more toxicity in ways that previously weren't possible. Okay, this one's a good one. Any and all cameras that are owned by a player can be locked. So when I say owned by a player, I'm talking about bulletproof cameras that you place down, or Valkyrie cameras, or Twitch drones, or even just regular standard drones, Mozzie drones, Evil Eyes, all that stuff. So what it means by it can be locked, it means that nobody else on that player's team can use red ping on that camera. So a very annoying thing that you deal with all the time if you're playing in casual, especially on Xbox, is you'll deal with teammates who will go into your cameras and red ping, and like they'll mark the teammates, so now the enemies know, hey, I'm getting marked. And there is a level of frustration with that because it's like, okay, now the person knows that they've been marked, they're going to go around and look for the camera and shoot the camera. So that is a really frustrating thing to deal with if you were a Valkyrie player, where you throw out the camera and you have some teammate who either doesn't understand how the game works or just doesn't care, and they'll go in and start pinging on the camera and get it destroyed. So having the ability to lock the camera and make it so that nobody else other than you can red ping on the camera, I think would be a very nice change. Obviously optional. So if you do want your teammates to red ping on the camera, you have that choice. But if you don't want them to, then you can prevent them from being able to do so. And this one is potentially problematic because obviously, if you add a weapon model range slider, meaning you could make the weapon model like the first person animations and all that stuff of your weapon model be further or closer to your camera, so either zoomed out or zoom in. Obviously, there's a level of like actual competitive advantage where if you have your weapon model zoomed out really far away where everything is super small, your hands are small, the gun model is small, that means that you have more of an advantage because you can see more, right? Less of your vision is being obscured by the gun model and whatnot. Because there are some guns, especially the AUG A2, where the gun model is pretty significantly obscuring your view. Um, and otherwise, say for example the CZ 75, right, where a big part of the balancing of that gun is its obnoxiously large iron sights, where it makes it very difficult to see what you're aiming at. And I'm assuming that is a balancing mechanic because they have never addressed it. And I'm assuming they intentionally are like, hey, you can have this pretty decent secondary weapon that has a fast fire rate, pretty decent damage, not too terrible to control recoil, but the downside is you have to deal with those atrocious iron sights that cover like 25% of your screen. So being able to give all players the option to remove that potential balancing mechanic might be a little broken. But who knows? Maybe it would be nice too. All right. So other balancing changes. So all of these were quality of life changes. I don't think any of these are potentially very controversial. I think everyone can agree these would be good changes, especially because they're mostly all optional. Um, but this is where we get into the potentially controversial stuff. But I think that I will be able to defend my reasoning and logic relatively well. Uh, relatively well. So let's start off. Anything labeled with more effort will require more programming, HUD, and or animation work than simply just changing a few numbers around. So most of these changes, let me keep you in mind, most of these changes are going to be very simple changes. So like stuff like changing a couple of numbers around, like doing more damage or increasing recoil. Literally just a couple of numbers changed around. You don't have to hire a programmer. You don't have to hire all these people. It's literally just type, done, right? But obviously, stuff labeled with more effort will require more effort. So there you go. So this one should be fairly simple. The knockback mechanic that is used by Nomad, Oryx, and as suggested Kali, that's going to be a whole different thing. But for Nomad, Nomad and Oryx, at least, they will be reverted to its original cooldown time. So obviously, if you know, recently during the the season one reinforcements, mid-season reinforcements, um, they nerfed the cooldown where it was significantly shorter, which means that if you knock someone back as Oryx, it's a lot easier for them to fight back. I think that was a dumb change. They should revert it. Simple enough. Um, Now, here's the thing, right? I don't think attacker repick needs to be nerfed. I think it's perfectly fine the way it is, and I kind of hope they don't change it at least for a while. But if it really, really, really needs to be nerfed, and it is too overpowered, then the route they should go about with it is that makes it so that you have to have your drone alive in order to repick, or you need to sacrifice a drone to repick. So, for example, say you're playing as Monty and you want to switch to Twitch. If you're switching to Twitch, and these are just random operators, right? It doesn't really matter which ones, but like Monty to Twitch, Monty to Nomad, whatever, right? Um, if your drone is alive, then your drone will get destroyed if you choose to repick. But obviously, you can repick as many times as you want, right? Like you can switch from Monty to Twitch, and then if you change your mind before the prep phase ends, then you can be like, oh, actually, I want to play Nomad. There's no consequence, right? But if you want to switch from Monty to Twitch for the first time, your drone will have to be destroyed. If your drone is already destroyed, then you lose your second drone. So that will be a pretty significant risk factor, and that will stop people from, you know, it'll stop a lot of people from being all willy-nilly with their attacker repicks, because right now there's no reason not to repick immediately. Um, but so there's going to be a lot more thought put into what operator you choose during the selection phase, because there's going to be a sacrifice made. I don't think this is something they need to do, but if it really absolutely seems to be too overpowered, then that's the recommended route of doing it. So LMG nerf. LMGs will have a 5% mobility nerf and a 10% mobility nerf when aiming. I don't want them messing with the recoil. I don't want them messing with the sights. All they need to do is mess with the mobility. Because the problem with the LMGs right now is that you basically walk around just as fast as with an AR. So people are treating LMGs like ARs with big magazines. If you want LMGs to be treated like LMGs, then they have to have the penalties of an LMG just like in real life. Thus, you are slower, right? Because like Capitao with the assault rifle and Capitao with the LMG, they run at the exact same speed, which I think is ridiculous. So having that nerf where if you have your LMG out, you're slower, even if it's not a significant amount, but just some amount slower. And to be fair, 5% is decently significant, especially the 10% mobility nerf when aiming. Like you're 10% slower while you're aiming down sights. That's going to make it quite a bit easier for the defenders or the attacker if it happens to be Maestro. But it makes it a lot easier for the victim to fight back. So there you go. Here's another good one. Any player that is healed, not just revived, or not revived, just healed, right? So if they get revived, this doesn't account for them, but if they're healed by Doc Thunderbird or Finka, they will have a plus icon show up under their icon at the top of the header for a second that is visible by both teams. So basically, you know how you have the header at the top where it shows your team on the left and the other team on the right? If somebody gets healed on either team, then you will see under that player's icon, you will see a little plus icon that says, hey, this player got healed. So this will be a pretty significant nerf to Thunderbird, Doc, and Finka because instead of it just being you got healed and there's absolutely no way of knowing, now if you get healed, the other team knows. So this will give you an idea of, this will potentially give you an idea of where you are, or at the very least, you have the knowledge of, okay, I shot the, like, say that you're an attacker and you shot someone down to 20 health. Um, if they get healed, then at the very least, as an attacker, you know, okay, this person got healed, so this person is no longer at 20 health. And if you happen to know, like, say you know where a Kona station is, then you can potentially deduce where they are exactly. But obviously, the situations where that would be significantly advantageous for you are going to be limited. So I don't think this is very overpowered, but it's just nice and useful to know going as an attacker going into a gunfight rather than it being completely random. You know, okay, this person got healed. This would be pretty significant. So, new secondary gadget for EMP on attack. So, as well as a anti-breach gadget on defense. So this one is obviously the secondary gadget, EMP secondary gadget is already in the works. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I think this should be a good change. That way, Thatcher and Callie especially Thatcher, aren't going to be. First off, they're not going to be banned anywhere near as much, and second off, there aren't going to be crutch operators that are basically required in every single game. I think this would be a good change. Um, and the anti-breach gadgets on defense. So, say for example, instead of having to choose, having basically with the way that the meta is right now, you need a mute, Kaid, or bandit, especially Kaid, unless if he gets banned. But any kind of actual setup basically needs one of those three operators if you want your best chances of winning. That's why I think a secondary, an anti-breach gadget on defense. Let's say, for example, you get two bandit batteries, and that's the secondary gadget. That might be a little bit too overpowered, but at the very least, it makes the lineups a lot more flexible. Where instead of having to bring a Kaid, a bandit, and a mute for basically every setup, you can have a Wamai, maybe not Wamai, a Vigil. I think Vigil having this would be pretty strong. Obviously, it wouldn't be as strong as having an actual bandit, but at the very least, you don't have to bring that bandit. Um, if two bandit batteries seems to be too overpowered, and I'm saying bandit batteries because I think it makes the most amount of sense, right? But let's say two bandit batteries is too overpowered, then let's say that it's either one bandit battery, or how about one electroclaw with a very small radius. So you can either reinforce one hatch or reinforce two walls if you place it in the exact right spot. But the radius is going to be very small, so you're going to have to place it very exact. It'll make it easier for the defenders to. So basically, like you wouldn't be able to do stuff like place it on the other side of a wall, right? Like you would have to have it basically on the wall in order for it to work. So I think that would be a good change. All right. So nerf crouch spamming. I was really hoping they were going to do this in season two. I'm kind of sad they didn't, but whatever. It is what it is. So after crouching and standing back up, or standing up and crouching, so basically just either crouching or uncrouching, um, there will be a delay of 200 milliseconds before you are able to crouch or stand up again. This will reduce the effects of crouch spamming mid-gunfight, but will still allow you to make quick peeks over shields or cover. So I know a common thing that a lot of people like to do is they like to quick peek, right? So they'll be under a shield, they'll be behind a shield, and they'll very quickly crouch, shoot, and uncrouch because they have a perfect shot. Um, and this is, I think, a fine enough feature. I don't think this needs to be nerfed. Um, but crouch spamming, so for example, say you're in the middle of a gunfight, just going in there and crouch spamming is horrifically obnoxious. It is a kind of basically broken mechanic, and it gives such an incredibly huge advantage to players with an Elite controller on Xbox. So on Xbox, with the default settings, and of course you can potentially change your settings if need be, but it's going to be really awkward. Uh, with the default controls, clicking the right stick is melee, B is crouch, right? So you can't have, unless if you play like with a really weird claw system, you can't crouch and um, have control of your right stick at the exact same time. You either do one or the other. Again, unless if you play really weird claw thing. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's kind of broken, especially on console. I think specifically as well, just in general, it should be nerfed. It's a ridiculous mechanic. I think any kind of spamming should be nerfed. So that crouch spamming obviously should have been nerfed. Lean spamming, I'm so glad that was nerfed. Lean spamming is super stupid. Um, yeah, good change. So this one is going to be pretty significant, and I really hope they implement this one because I think it makes a lot of sense if you listen it out, if you hear it out, right? So it is obviously pretty annoying if you're playing as an attacker and you down somebody, but they get healed all the way back up to full health. I think that's kind of egregious that they can literally get healed up to 100 health. It makes it feel like all of that work you did to down that person just completely null and void. It feels like you didn't do anything, which can be very frustrating. And the same can apply to defenders. Say, for example, you down somebody and they get revived by Finka, or just get revived in general, right? It doesn't have to be. Um, it doesn't have to be. They don't have to be revived by like Finka or Kona stations or whatever. But if they just get revived, they can heal, right? So they nerf the maximum health. They should nerf the maximum health. So, for example, if you're a 1 speed and you go from 100 health to down, then when you get revived, the maximum amount of health that you can have is 75. So, and then it'll do the classic thing where it's 10, it's you get 10 extra health if you are a 2 speed and 25 extra health if you are 1 speed. Um, and you can still overheal, right? So say for example, if you get stimmed by Doc, right, and you're at 75 health and that's your maximum, you can go to above 100 health, but it will slowly decrease all the way down to 75. It's basically like, you know how in custom games you can set your maximum health to 75? Um, it's basically like doing that to anybody who is downed. I think this would be a great change because it would cause a lot less frustration with people who are getting healed, because there's been a lot of healing mechanics now with Thunderbird and Finka being able to heal, because it used to just be Doc, who had 3 stims, um, but now that you have Thunderbird, who basically has unlimited stims, and Finka, who only has 3 stims, but will stim her entire team, it will make you feel like if you down someone, it actually means something, which I think it should be. If you down someone, it should mean something, and this will make it so that it does mean something. Alright, extended barrel change. The extended barrel has no damage drop-off up to 20 meters, but goes down at the same rate as current. So, obviously, extended barrel is probably the most useless attachment in the game. Um, there is no real reason for you to bring an extended barrel versus a recoil reducer, because at the end of the day, all you're doing is just giving yourself a tiny bit of extra damage at maximum range. So that's why I'm just saying go all out, max range for 20 meters, which is basically. And you know what? Now that I'm looking at it, it should be up to 50 meters. Why not, right? Because there should be a reason for you to choose the extended barrel, because you're basically using the opportunity cost by sacrificing recoil reduction. You are basically saying, "No, I don't want to reduce my recoil, I just want to do more damage at a distance." But the amount of damage, extra damage you do at distance is nowhere near enough to justify bringing an extended barrel. You're talking like maybe 3, 4, 5 points of damage. Sometimes maybe like in extreme cases it'll be 10 or 11 points of damage. But I'm just saying, screw it. You have an extended barrel, max range up to 50 meters. It says 20. I'm just going to retroactively say I don't care. 50 meters. And if 50 meters is the maximum distance, then whatever. Max range at all distances. Why not? Max range at all distances. Or max damage at all distances, sorry. Um, and also, it provides a less severe damage reduction when shooting through surfaces at all ranges. So, for example, I'm making this number completely up. I have no idea what the actual damage reduction is. I just know it exists. Let's say that you shoot through a wall and it reduces your bullet damage by 15%. With the extended barrel, it will only reduce your damage through surfaces by 5 or 10%. So that way, if you're shooting through cover, it's more reliably going to do damage, and it'll do a damage amount closer to its original. There you go. All right, next up we have the suppressor. The suppressor will have a 5% damage reduction rather than a 15% damage reduction. A 15% damage reduction is hilariously high. That is a lot of damage reduction for your weapon. Kind of insane. That's why nobody's using suppressors. So make it so that it's only a 5% damage reduction. So you're still losing damage, but the amount of cases where the shots to kill is going to actually be impacted will be reduced. So you're more likely to actually have the same amount of shots to kill in more scenarios. Obviously, in a lot of circumstances, you will still be required to have one extra shot to kill, but the amount of circumstances where that will be affected will be limited. Next up, weapon changes. I don't think I'm going to get over to the attacker changes. We're 30 minutes in, and I haven't even gotten to the changes for the operators. So we're going to just stop with the weapon changes. Boss G will break hatches with one shot and will knock back Clash of Shield. I think the Boss G could use this buff, right? Why not, right? The hatches, every other shotgun can break a hatch with one shot, except for the Boss G. Except maybe I think the TCSG maybe can't. Maybe the other slug shotguns can't. But whatever. Even if that's the case, Boss G should break a hatch with one shot. I mean, come on. It's a shotgun. Whatever it's a slug, I don't care. It should break hatches with one shot. Also, it will knock back Clash's shield. I think this will be pretty significant. So say you're playing as Dokebi, um, and you shoot if you shoot Clash with the Boss G, that'll knock her back, and that gives you a pretty decent opportunity to fire off a second shot and kill her. Obviously, it's still going to be, the amount of situations where you're able to do that will be limited, but still is a good change. I think it should be implemented. All right, next up, the SP SMG9. Um, as I will mention later, it will be removed from Clash but added to Glaz. So the ammo count increase will be from 20 plus 1 rounds to 25 plus 1 rounds. So it's a lot more of a versatile secondary weapon option. I think that is totally fine because the only operators that it will be added to will be Kali and Glaz, who I think could need a better secondary weapon option. Obviously, now looking at Vector Glare, they kind of beat me to it because they said, hey, the Berry 9 is going to be added to Glaz. So obviously this recommended change is kind of redundant, but this is what I was thinking last season. Next up, the SR-25 and Mark 17. The recoil and damage. The recoil will be reduced and the damage will be increased. So basically, just making them overall more effective. So this will obviously affect Blackbeard and Flores. Because honestly, there's not really any reason to use the SR-25. It's probably the worst DMR in the entire game. So overall, I think that the SR-25 and the Mark 17 could use a bit of a buff, especially the Mark 17 because it's a gun that I wish I could use. I love the Scar in most games I play, but man, is the Scar H really bad in this game, and I wish that it would be changed. Next up, M762 by Zofia. Recoil reduced. I think that the recoil is a bit strong. I think this would be a good change. Yeah. Good change overall. AR-15. So this would be Maverick's AR, his semi-automatic 50 caliber rifle that shoots 50 Beowulf. Its base damage will be increased to 83, making it a very, very powerful weapon, as it should be, because it is a semi-automatic rifle that only has 11 shots in the magazine. So it should be a super hard-hitting weapon with a base damage of 83. And it will be able to destroy studs in walls if shot properly. So if you shoot the studs directly, they will break the studs in the wall. I don't see any reason why not, because it's still not going to make him overly useful, but at the same time, it will just give the AR-15 a little bit of extra love, which I think will be super necessary. I said that OTS-03 should have the damage profile against surfaces of a slug shotgun. I think that might be a bit too much. I don't think so. Maybe not. But yeah, damage profile should be able. So this will make it a lot easier to destroy walls, right? So like, you can create a rotation as Glaz with your primary weapon. You can just shoot the wall a bunch, and eventually you will be able to destroy it. If it's going to be like that, because if you think about it, right, Tachanka's LMG can do the same thing, and they fire the same cartridge. So, and then again, I guess of course Tachanka's LMG can't shoot through the walls or through the windows on plane, but still, whatever. Anyways, the point is, it should be able to create more destruction. All right, last but not least for this video, and I'm going to cut this part off and make another video for the operators. The CSRX-300, which would be Kali's primary weapon, shots from the primary weapon create bigger holes in walls and can break studs in walls, so this will make it a lot more versatile. Basically, it's kind of ridiculous that a 300 Winchester Magnum will not destroy the studs in walls, yet a 12 gauge can. That is insane. If you've ever seen any videos from YouTubers, like GunTubers especially, you know that 300 Winchester Magnum is insanely powerful, and also you know that slug shotguns, although powerful, are less powerful than 300 Winchester Magnum. So the fact that shotguns can break it, but a 300 Winchester Magnum can't, is kind of ridiculous. It should be able to destroy, it should be able to create much bigger holes in walls, and it should be able to create studs in walls, making it so that she's more easily able to create her own rotations. Alright, this one is going to be interesting. So this is just a suggestion. If you disagree with it, totally understand. But shots from the CSRX that don't down enemies will, or down or kill, obviously, will launch them back like air jabs. So, say for example, you get shot by, say, sure, you're just running around minding your own business, and you get shot by the CSRX, and you don't go down. So, say it does like 40 or 50 or 60 damage. Instead of you being able to just fight that bullet off and continue the gunfight, which is super stupid, the fact that you can do that, it'll knock you back. So it'll give the Cali a significant advantage while also not making it completely impossible for the victim to fight back. So, say for example, if you're peeking over a shield and you somehow get shot but you don't get headshotted, you just get air jabbed back, you'll be safe, you'll be fine. But if you are in a vulnerable scenario where if you get knocked back you can easily die, then that's the price you pay for getting shot by the CSRX and putting yourself in a vulnerable position. Because currently the CSRX just does not have enough, its damage is just so piss poor. The fact that you can shoot players and they straight up don't die, it's frustrating for the Cali, and it's nonsensical for the victim. Yeah, absolute ridiculous. I think this would be a really good change because it would make it so that it's a good middle ground, right? Because if it one shot killed you, that could be a bit frustrating. Like if it always one shot killed you, that could be a bit frustrating from the defender's point of view. So at the very least, with this suggestion, more than likely the defender is screwed, but they still have an opportunity to fight back, which I think is important. If you don't like that idea, then how about this? Players shot by the OTS. Um, this was supposed to say CSRX, not OTS. Will have a slowness effect applied to them for a few seconds that will make them move more slowly. Go figure. So, say for example, if you get shot by the CSRX and you don't die, or don't go down, then you'll be slowed to a crawl. Like, say it's like the speed of you going in barbed wire. So you're not allowed to sprint, you're not allowed to do anything like that. You are stuck at a snail's pace for a couple of seconds. So obviously in this scenario, it is possible as a defender for you to fight back, but it's also a lot easier for the Cali to fire off a second shot and to be able to kill you immediately right after. I like this idea less. I like my first idea more, but if you think that this first idea is too overpowered, then this is a good fallback option. Also, this is a really good one. The CSRX can create holes in castle barricades that can be seen and shot through. I think this would be a great change. So, say for example, if you, because currently right now, the only person who can make holes in castle barricades that don't destroy the castle barricades is Maverick, and well, I guess it's a lot of operators. It's Maverick, Fuse, and Ying, right? So if you Ying through it, there's a very tiny hole that you can see through it, and you can shoot through it. If you fuse through it, it's a much larger hole, basically a punch-size hole that you can see through and shoot through. And Maverick, he can make as many holes as he wants. He can basically destroy the entire castle barricade with the amount of holes he can make. But, yeah, in that scenario, Kylie would be added to the list. So you get a lot more holes. So you can make the holes bigger or smaller. It's up to you. It could be somewhere in between the size of Ying's and the size of Fuse's. But just any means of being able to create a hole in a castle barricade that is a one-way thing, I think would be nice. And last but not least, getting shot by the CSRX, but not getting down, will cause a status effect that will stop you from being able to get healed for 60 seconds. So say, for example, you get shot by the CSRX and you don't die, but you either get knocked back or you get slowed. Then for the next 60 seconds, you cannot be healed. You cannot be healed by Thunderbird, you cannot be healed by Doc. You wouldn't have to really worry about getting healed by Finka, because Finka can only heal the other attackers. So in this scenario, if you shoot a teammate with Callie, then sure, they wouldn't be able to get healed by Finka, whatever, but that's besides the point. But the purpose of this is, there is a lot of frustration that goes on with if you shoot someone as Callie and they survive, that they can just get healed right back up to full. So the combination of the maximum health is 100, or sorry, the maximum health being 75, and also the fact that they can't get healed for 60 seconds will make it so that if you're shot by the CSRX, you are getting punished, as you should be. if you're getting shot by the CSRX, you should be punished. So I think a combination of getting air jabbed backwards or getting slowed to a crawl and um, no healing for 60 seconds will make the CSRX a much more formidable weapon and will give Callie a lot more opportunities to actually use her weapon to get kills. Um, it will not be overpowered, obviously, because if it was overpowered, then it would be a one-shot kill. It used to be a one-shot down across the board, if you remember that. And I'll be honest, that was a little bit broken, but still not incredibly broken. Like, if they just brought back that mechanic, I wouldn't even be mad. But I think this is a great middle ground where it's not as frustrating for the victims, where they get downed immediately. It's a lot less frustrating in that regard. And, but as an attacker, you feel like, oh, I did something, right? I shot them. They can't get healed for 60 seconds. That is a significant amount of time for them to not get healed. And they got air jabbed back, so they're no longer in the fight. I think that if you get shot with a CSRX, you should be punished and you should be put out of commission, and you should not be able to be in an advantageous position in any gunfights for a significant period of time. I think all of those changes are good. All right, so obviously I'm not going to talk about all of the changes here, but what I will talk about is the one for Callie, where she gets 4 lances instead of 3, and the lance can crack mirror windows. Ooh. So I think this would be a great change if she could crack mirror like say you know how you can punch the mirror windows and it'll crack the view and it'll make it so that you can't see through it anymore. I think it would be a fantastic balancing choice if the lance could do that. So if you shot the lance at the mirror window, it cracks it. It no longer is in a advantageous position. So now Callie is a direct counter to Mira, which is a pretty powerful operator, and the defenders will have to be smarter about where they put their mirror windows, or they will need a Jaeger or a Wamai or a Surrogate, a Rooney, to help them with that. Because this is obviously not impossible to counter, right? If you have a Surrogate right in front of the mirror window, then the lance won't be able to go through and crack the mirror window because it'll get destroyed by the Surrogate. So I think this will create a lot more opportunities for interesting gameplays. I think it would be a great change. I want to see that. Also, replace breach charges with hard breach gadget. I think this would be a very significant change. So it'll make her very self-sufficient, right? So instead of relying on your team to, like, uh, you know, breach through the wall, you could basically breach through the wall by yourself, which would be a huge bonus. Obviously, you're still better off having a dedicated hard breacher like a Thermite or a Ace or whatever, but the fact that you are able to not have to rely on your teammates, you can go in, lance it, and hard breach it by yourself will make her super self-sufficient. So obviously, all of these things combined will make Callie pretty strong, but at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind, she is stuck with arguably one of the worst weapons in Siege. And although she's getting a lot of buffs here and there with her being able to, you know, cause the defenders from healing and whatnot, she is still going to be the least versatile. She's going to have the least versatile primary weapon in the entire game. So, her primary gadget should be much better, and she should be able to do more by herself. So there you go. That's all of my recommended changes. I have plenty more. I can make a second video talking about all the other stuff. Hope you enjoyed this little discussion video. This is a very long rant. It's not really a rant, but it's just a explanation video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Take care. Peace out. Bye-bye.